Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'd like to talk a bit about the weather situation. For the last few weeks, we've had horrific storms. I mean, horrific storms. Floods everywhere, roofs being blown off. Enough rain is falling within the space of a few minutes to flood entire roads, turn them into rivers. This year, we've seen some of the craziest weather that I can remember. And we're being told it's due to climate change. Now, go back a few years and they'd have said global warming, except when you look at some of the record low temperatures countries experienced this year, we can see that we can understand why they stopped saying global warming. Because it's not just warming, it's freezing. It's really messed up. Now, because of these extreme weather conditions, we're about to come into a massive global food shortage. I mean, a horrific one. Something that will just dwarf the COVID pandemic. But I'll cover that in a later video, and there are already some superb YouTubers who cover this specific issue. For example, Ice Age Farmer. Be prepared for a massive lack of food. The countries who are producing it are being flooded, or they're having droughts, or second year in a row we're getting fruit but it's not ripening, and then it's rotting. It's actually rotting on the branch. It's getting mold and becoming inedible. This is the second year in a row. My trees are so filled with fruit that the branches and boughs are like bending over with the weight, but it's unusable because when there should have been a hot period, we had rain. What I will most likely do, especially with the plums, is turn them into mulch and then take them to a local village distillery and have them turn into the 52% plum brandy Slivovica, because that's about all we can do with them this year. Apples, again, we'll turn into apple brandy. But these weather conditions are affecting everyone slightly differently all over the world. This year, I spent 6 months keeping the living room fire going, 24 hours a day with wood, and it was still cold. The middle of May, it was -10. The middle of May. We had more than a 6-month winter this year. I can't even express how hardcore that is. And then we went through boiling heat, absolutely staggering heat, and then cold temperatures with heavy rains. This year, or the end of last year, saw a massive earthquake in Zagreb, Croatia. A horrific earthquake. A couple of weeks ago I passed by Zagreb, both on the way to my destination and on the way back. And it's a place that doesn't get horrifically massive earthquakes. A couple of weeks ago there was a flood in Germany and Belgium which cost the lives of more than 160 people. And the government's response was, we never expected this sort of thing to happen. The whole of Europe has been flooded. But at the same time, the whole of Europe has had massive heat waves. Turkey has had horrific forest fires. The temperature in Turkey has ranged from 45 to 50 degrees. Fires are literally starting in the street because it is so hot. Greece, they've had exactly the same problem. They've got forest fires everywhere because of the heat. Many records have been beaten this year. The UK had something like 32.5 degrees Celsius, and in winter had minus 23. You know, that's what I expect here. The UK is generally quite a flat temperature range, not extreme one end, extreme the other. Texas had a massive deep freeze, which completely messed up the supply chain and justified why many people prep for themselves and their families. China has been going through severe droughts and severe flooding. They're not likely to have any food crop in the near future. It's not looking good. It really, really isn't. There's something definitely is going on. And what really twists my stomach is the people in power are pushing things like the carbon footprint tax. They're pushing things like electric cars, knowing that these will be powered by coal-fired electric plants. Coal. You know, they're selling this bollocks about oil and petrol being so bad for the environment, you have to use electricity. But what creates the electricity? Because it's not solar panels, it's not wind turbines. These things don't produce anywhere near enough electricity to power one of these rare minerals electric vehicles. It's coal. They're just lying. Yeah, there is climate change. This nonsense about cow farts and methane being the reason why they want to stop meat production. This is nonsense as well. Yes, cows do cause devastation if mass farmed. And places like the Amazon are being cut down to raise beef. But places like the Amazon are also being cut down to raise soy. So all you soy boys out there who think you're eco and vegan and green and stuff, go look at what's happening in the Amazon. That emasculating estrogen-rich drink or food you're taking is responsible for deforesting the largest producer of oxygen on the planet, so for plankton. We're getting ready to remove that also. Tar sands in Alberta, Canada. If the people in power were so concerned about the planet, they'd stop that. But they don't. Car production. We have airfields filled with newly produced cars which will never be sold because car companies need to get money. The big governments pay the car companies. They win from both sides. What they're not doing is actually selling the cars. I don't know what they're going to do with them. In Europe by 2030, you won't be able to drive a fossil fuel vehicle, as in diesel or petrol. So why are they still mass producing cars and just stockpiling them? What are they going to do with them? The amount of rare minerals that now goes into a vehicle for its electronic system, its computer system, it's disgusting. We are literally pillaging the planet, and at the same time our little overseers are blaming us for causing the damage. Yet it's their little group who are doing it most. countries like China, India. Now you've got countries in Africa which are also experiencing this sort of industrial boom. They seem to be exempt from all this, but because they are supplying us with the cheap plastic crap that we need or want, they're being ignored. And there's people like me and you who will just be taxed and paying for a completely messed up climate. But here's the rub. I do agree that mankind has messed up the planet. Wherever I go, I see evidence of it. Just as simple as, going mushroom picking in the forest, I find bottles everywhere. And some of these are, 30, 40 years old. Wherever I go. It's not quite like the UK where you find shopping trolleys in the middle of a forest. But man's evidence is everywhere. The devastation. That is a cause to Mother Nature having major problems. But I don't think it's the only one. There have been several studies done over the years by various scientists around the world, which unfortunately contradict the current pressure on what is causing climate change. Now, when I was a child, there was a superb man called David Bellamy, and he was a botanist, and he was very, very renowned in Britain, and he made lots of programs basically introducing plant life to ordinary people because he was so passionate about it. And he had a very successful career. Raven again. Until he made the mistake on, I think it was BBC. He made the mistake of saying about climate change that we are in fact going through a natural climate change because we are still coming out of the last ice age. We are constantly shown images of polar bears stuck on tiny little icebergs, and we are being told we are responsible that the ice caps are melting. What they are failing to mention is we are still coming out of the last ice age. There are still glaciers, and these are melting because we are coming out of the last ice age. No doubt we are contributing to temperature rises and pollution that is us. And volcanoes, obviously, because volcanoes produce amount of toxins into the atmosphere. One thing also that's never mentioned is other planets are also suffering temperature rise. They are also suffering erratic storms. This in some ways is very contradictory because you will have an excellent peer-reviewed paper such as Nature or New Scientist who in one article will point out that other planets are having temperature increases, and in a subsequent article this is a climate change myth sprouted by climate skeptics, even though the data is there. Some planets are going through such weird changes, we can't, every year we try and come up with a different explanation. For example, the hexagonal storm on Saturn's cap on its pole. What's with that? Seriously. Does that look natural to you? The whole solar system is currently going through what's called a little fluffy cloud, or a local fluffy cloud. And this is basically an interstellar gas cloud, and we started going through this about 33,000 years ago, which is roughly the time of the last ice age. We are passing through it, the whole solar system. It's possible we are being affected because of this region of space, because of its helium and hydrogen density, which apparently is held together by unusual magnetic force. There's another thing which suggests that our current climate woes and our weather problems may be caused by the Earth itself. And this is due to one of the big fears of many preppers and, dare I say, conspiracy theorists, because that's what it's labelled as, even though the evidence is there, that the Earth is due for a polar flip, that its magnetic poles are due to flip over. And they do this every so many 100,000 years. The Earth does this. It literally, the magnetic poles flip. And we can see evidence that in the last 20 years, magnetic north, geomagnetic north, has started to rapidly increase its movement. It's basically moved from Canada and it's now in Siberia, and it's continuing to move. North is not where you think it is. It's moving, and it's moving very, very rapidly. Now, those in power are happy to tell you this has no effect whatsoever on the Earth's climate system, or on its weather patterns, or on its tectonic plates. What a pile of bollocks. It has to have. The Earth is an enclosed ecosystem. If one part of it starts moving erratically, just as chaos theory predicted in the 60s, as you know, the butterfly effect, it will have a knock-on effect with other parts of the world, of the Earth. But apparently this is nothing to worry about. Move along and go back to looking at cow farts, sniffing cow farts. There are many, many things going on at the same time. Many, many things. It's possible that it's not one of these, but they're all happening at the same time. When we look at water itself, we got entire regions with droughts and no water, and yet a handful of corporations and billionaires are buying up all the water supplies. And I don't personally think they're doing this for philanthropic reasons. They're not going to be handing water out, potable water out on the street. They're going to be charging huge amounts of money because it will be the new oil. I wouldn't be surprised in the next few years if one of the multitude of hydroelectric vehicles or hydroelectric engines which have been patented suddenly appears on the market. If you ever get a chance, look into what happens to the inventors of hydroelectric engines. But I think once the corporations and the real powers that be, once they have total control over the water supply, oil has been phased out. Electricity we just can't make in our current situation because we're not investing in alternative energy to the level we should be. We're trying, well, not us, but those who own it are trying to scrabble as much money together and power as they can before they lose control. And we're going to pay for this because they're not investing in new technology. Yeah, I've heard of things like 0-point energy has been discovered, cold fusion, but it's possible that these are in some secret test laboratory, but until I see it on an industrial scale, I think we'll still be using Earth's raw resources. We'll just move from oil to coal, or back to coal, and then to water. There is one more possibility of what's causing all this chaos around us. And this really gets into the realms of speculation. But again, there is scientific evidence for it. It's possible, firstly, that there is a binary sun. I don't want to get into Nibiru or Planet X, but it is possible that the sun has a binary brown dwarf star somewhere in our solar system with an erratic ellipsis. And maybe this, or the re-emergence of this, is causing a knock-on effect across the planets and across the solar system, which we are feeling. Now, last year, before the COVID crisis started, in January of 2020, November, December of 2019, there were lots of warnings about large comets which were going to come through our solar system, and which did. And there were big fears that the Earth would pass through their tails. Now, the tail of a comet can go on for millions of miles. And if any of you are versed in panspermia, the tail of a comet, and the comet itself, can carry frozen molecules, potentially even frozen bacteria or viruses from outside of the solar system. And by breaking up and colliding with, for example, Earth or Earth's atmosphere, it can drop its payload and start little mini microevolutions all over the planet. But at the same time, humans are breathing in this dust cloud. There's an Indian scientist who published a paper which it got a lot of attention and was basically shot down, where he tried to prove that virtually every plague was preceded by a comet, all through history. I mean, back to the Roman period. Because people are breathing in unknown bacteria and viruses. Now, they say this is absolute nonsense. And that our actions last year with COVID, lockdowns, quarantines, isolation, social distancing, mask wearing. These were purely to do with a flu-like virus which may or may not have originated in Wuhan, China, which obviously they changed that in a laboratory. We never even mentioned that one. But look at the number of countries who instantly reacted to this, both in terms of lockdown and mask wearing. This was instant. All over the world. Half the population of the world was locked down indoors for a virus which they claimed was not airborne. For me, this is either a response to the fact that the Earth passed through the tail of a comet, and they were frightened that a large proportion of the world would suddenly contract a mega plague like the Black Death or the Spanish flu, or even begin mutating due to contact with alien DNA or RNA. So they locked us up. And when we did go out, we still have to wear masks in many countries. It's possible that last year was a test run, just in case this happens. Can half the population of the world be locked in their houses in the short space of time, within say 24 hours, and kept there for 6 months until disaster is averted? There's definitely something wrong with the weather. What it is, it's very, very hard to discern, because there is an official line on this. And the official line, as always, crushes any alternative scientific research. It's a career destroyer for any scientist to propose an alternative theory, regardless of the evidence they may have amassed. There's definitely something wrong with the weather. I encourage all of you to do your own research. As always, look for yourselves. Keep an eye on the position of the sun. There's an excellent old video you can find on YouTube where Inuit were interviewed about the sun and about climate change. And through translation, they explained the sun rises and sets in different places now than it used to. And this has happened in a very, very short period of time. But these are people who spend their lives out on the ice. They know exactly where the sun rises and sets, and it's moved. I'm not going to give my theory as to what is causing this, because I believe each of us should construct our own theory based on research, intelligence, logic, and understanding. If I tell you what I think, then it is no better than the powers that be telling you why you should stop eating meat and be taxed for wearing shoes or a t-shirt. You have to find out for yourself. Just pay attention. And with everything in life, pay attention. Nothing is as it seems. as always, please subscribe to my channel. Please like my videos and be free.